What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Data is My Science podcast, the show that makes data your passion. I'm your host, Dapper Data. Today, I brought a special guest on, okay, to discuss a few topics. All right, this person is, I want to say, multi-talented, if you will, right? So we want to discuss data preparation. Okay, we're going to discuss search and discovery, and we're going to discuss what we call ad engineering. Okay, and to me, that's a new topic, so we'll definitely dive into that. Um, and I brought on a special guest, right, to discuss all of these topics. And his name is Andrew Yates. Andrew Yates, welcome. Say what's up to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, so Andrew is the CEO and founder of promoted.ai, a Y Combinator startup company. Formerly, Andrew led ads ranking auctions and marketplace engineering and research teams at Facebook and Pinterest. He specializes in designing billion-dollar content marketplaces that maximizes long-term revenue while protecting both seller and user experiences, and has published over dozens of patents in commercial media optimization. Now, that's to me, that's really important because I definitely want to hone in on a few patents that I have in mind myself. But hey, look, you've had a great career, probably at such a young age in your career and things like that. Andrew, tell them a little bit about yourself and thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. As you say, I started Promoted AI. We optimize unicorn marketplaces. We sort search, promotes the best listings at the top to increase revenue. And the way we're doing it is we're taking ideas from big ad tech, like at Pinterest, at Facebook, at Google, and we're applying it in general to general commerce media. And one way of thinking of it is it's like everything you've been doing with data science, but there's a dollar sign attached to it. And if
Ah,
you do it incorrectly, that's other people's money. So people get really serious about it. So I think that's what's really interesting about what we're doing from like a general data science, data engineering perspective, where it's one thing when it's your own data and you're using it internally. It's another thing when, yeah, it's other people's money and they care a lot when
yeah.
it needs to be correct. And it's tricky too. It's like you need to optimize on these margins and it needs to be not just mostly correct, but very correct, because if it's not, then you end up losing money.
Yeah, the accuracy definitely has to be a lot more on point, right? When it comes
Yeah.
down to it, because you're dealing with money. And one of the things I read, we're looking through your website and looking at Promote AI and diving a little bit into some of the research that I did. You mentioned that you started um, Promoted to match every buyer with every seller across every app, right? And for me, that's very like uh, specific, and that's really like it's awesome, because it reminds me of what some of those big companies are doing. Like, you got your Amazons, right? You got any type of companies that are out there similar to that. They're doing something like that, right? Trying to match that buyer with the seller, and
Yeah.
so how are you doing that? Is there some type of uniqueness behind the scenes, or is it just more of the more data you're collecting from individuals, then that data is allowing you to become more efficient with your algorithm behind the scenes?
Yeah. Great questions. Connect every buyer with every seller across every app. It's our vision for what we're building to. The gist of it is, if you think about, let's say, Facebook newsfeed, and you think about what it has to do, it can literally be anything to anybody, anywhere, right now.
Right.
Just create anything, right? I mean, you can go on Facebook newsfeed right now and create an ad about anything,
Yeah.
and it just goes to anybody,
Yeah.
right? But it's stuck on Facebook. It has to be on. I mean, the bad news is it has to be on Facebook newsfeed, or then in Instagram, or Messenger, or there's some of their other properties. We're taking that kind of thinking, but taking it off of that, just Facebook, and then doing it for your app or your marketplace.
Ah, okay, so that makes a lot of sense now, right? So
Yeah.
some of those, like you said, the billion dollar tech companies, right, that are out there. Um, they probably have people that may do these type of things, right? But there's a lot of people that are not billion dollar companies, right? That also need this type of optimization probably. And so are you combining multiple, and when you say marketplace, we're talking about the marketplaces that are the ad marketplaces within these type of apps. Is that what you mean by that?
By marketplace, that's our specialty. That's where we got started with these. They are multi-billion dollar companies frequently.
All right, right.
If you're only worth 1 billion, you could be worth two, right? What are all
Right.
more billions? Um, we are doing really well with some of these more complicated two-sided marketplaces because they have the scale and because they have the complexity.
Mhm.
What we're doing is um it can also apply to just generally I have a list of things. I have things I can show you. Which do I show you? When you open up your app, so you pull up your app and you open up your screen, what do I show you? And it sounds like, well, how big of a deal is that? Well, no, that's the business that runs Silicon Valley, is what you see on your phone screen
Right,
is
right.
the business. That's the business of Facebook. That's all they do. Just some text and some image, right? And whatever shows
Hmm.
up on your screen, it's worth $1 trillion. Same thing for Google.
Yeah.
Same thing for Amazon on their retail app. And then they have other parts to it. Around like for Amazon, of course, they have their entire retail business and logistics and such a huge business. But the beginning of it is when you open up your app or you open up your website. What are the things you're showing? And how much is it worth it to others to be shown? And that's where you get into the advertising business. You can start
Yeah.
selling that search and discovery. And that's where our philosophy is that don't think of advertising as this separate like a separate industry. It's its own thing. People typically get into the whole banner ads or brand ads, and it has like a negative connotation. And I get it. That's, as a consumer, that's your experience with advertising. But as as an engineer, as someone who's running these marketplaces, these two-sided marketplaces, e-commerce apps, social media, it's the same. It's just what do people see and how much is that
Mhm.
worth? And then how do you charge for that? And then ultimately becomes your business. And that part of charging for it explicitly to be discovered, that's ads. And for
Yeah.
us, we specialize in these two-sided marketplaces because it's so hard to do the optimization that they don't really have other good options. Whereas, hey,
Yeah.
if I have a Shopify store, I have like 20 items. Look, you don't need a whole lot to do a reasonable job. But if it's like these two-sided marketplaces where you have thousands of listings, they're always coming and going. They like you book it once and then it's gone, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. That that's really hard. It doesn't fit well with any other solution. And so for us, that's been our entry point where we built out this amazing technology. And there are certain places where it's nice to have, but maybe
Mhm.
it's more complex and it's more expensive. So maybe it's a lower priority versus there are no really good other alternatives. So we focus on that.
Right. No, those are great points. Some of the things I thought about throughout your message just then was that I'm going on Facebook and, through my business, and I tried to, this is my first time ever using ads, right?
Uh,
In there, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna use ads and put in all the keywords they're talking about and everything like that.
mhm.
But I feel like I still never understood whether my everything I did was really booming or not. Right? I feel like I never really I didn't know if I wasted a whole year and money or like they can give you the charts and graphs and things like that. For me, and I'm a big data guy. I'm looking at all the data and stuff, and I feel like I never got that warm and fuzzy right of being able to say these specific ads are the ones that I know for sure are working. And I think that was because I look at Facebook and Google, right? I look at those companies, although they're amazing companies, their name alone carries them across, many avenues, right? So if I just am I in my mind, if I am a seller of a product or anything like that, right? I'm going to invest whatever amount of money. The more money I invest, I'm thinking, all right, these ads are going to boom somewhere because it's Facebook, right? It's Google, right? But there has to be companies out there that are saying, look, I'm going to make it more optimized. I'm actually going to take those ads. I'm going to make sure that your ads are even more specific to your audience, even more specific to like how you're going to your return on investment is going to be much better, right? Like that's what you care about, your ROI, right? You
Mhm.
know, and so is that something that you're helping out with, right? More than anything, that ROI in that aspect.
Well, we do it from the platform's perspective. We
Mhm.
don't help you run Facebook ads or Google ads. We're
Right, right.
helping if you are Facebook. Your problem is you need the entire market. You need the entire system. Everyone's ads plus everyone's user experience combined. So,
Hmm.
for example, Outschool is one of our customers.
Hmm.
First of all, Outschool runs no ads, right? So we're an ad tech company. They
What?
don't have ads, right? Like, well, that's kind of funny thing. It's like we're an ad tech company, but we've never run any ads on our some of our customers. They're like,
Right.
and people are just like, what? Again, I think this sort of you say ad, and people just immediately start thinking about, oh, you mean you help me run my Google and Facebook ads?
Mhm.
It's so super saturated that that's also partially why I think there's such a big opportunity here. It's just it's hard to think about. You have to like take a step back, and I'm gonna take that step back with you. So for Outschool, for example, um, their goal is they need the entire platform to grow,
Hmm.
all of Outschool. So that means they have all of their teachers. Outschool is a marketplace for Zoom classes. Teachers
Okay.
will they'll create a course, some lessons, they could whatever their topic is, and then parents and learners will join these Zoom classes, and that's a marketplace.
Hmm.
Outschool's job is to do as efficient matching as possible in aggregate, so not just a single specific class, but all classes combined. And that also means that there's going to be some give and take. So that means one person being top of search means another person can't be top of search. There's only one top of search.
Mm.
So the goal is, how do you do such an efficient job of matching that in aggregate, more people successfully register for a class on Outschool and are happy and successful with it. That's
Right,
what we
right. Because you're not going to reach out to I guess depending. I guess if you look at, and I'm just taking it off a subject a little bit, but I'm just thinking about like real estate, right? You know,
do.
I'm trying to sit there and match all the people. You know, instead of doing those cold calls, right? You're not doing the cold calls anymore. You know, calling about 200, 300 people a day just to see, hey, you want to buy a house? Want to buy a house? Right now, you're like, all right, I'm not going to contact people that are 70 years old or older because they probably don't want to buy a house, right? Or that are too young where they wouldn't want to buy a house, right? You know, or they already have multiple properties. Why? Or they already have maybe one property right now. Why would they want to buy a house? So when you're looking at like Outschool, I mean, it's specific things that they look at, right? They dive deeper, I'm assuming, you know, to make sure, okay, I'm not going to reach out to specific people in the audience that I know are not going to attend these courses, right? You know, whether they're too old, too young, maybe it's an age range specifically, maybe it's a financial obligation or financial means or something like that that they have in their background. You know, are they're looking at all those different things? Is that what you're talking about?
Something like that.
Yeah,
The idea of it is the computer is doing it for you.
got you. Okay,
Right. So you
okay.
come on. So that gets into like the personalized search piece, which is, hey, I have a 5-year old, and the 5-year old loves math, and so in general, start sending me recommendations for math classes for 5-year olds. That
Right.
I'm getting qualified, and then the gist of it is that okay, that frees up other inventory for other types of recommendations, and then aggregate, what happens is if you're doing a better job of matching what people are interested in, you can show fewer impressions. You can show fewer like the cold call ideas. Like, well, what if it only took 5 cold calls to make a sale instead of 50?
Hmm.
Or and but you have a budget of only say 100 cold calls you can make every day.
All
And you
right.
think of like, oh, I've got my efficiency running. And then you start getting a reputation for the people who can actually make the
Mhm.
deal. And so more people come to you, and it starts like this virtuous cycle. So you can think of what we're doing with this matching problem, matching buyers with sellers across every app. Um, think of it as the core of it is you're finding what people are, the good stuff. You're like finding the good stuff, but also like the good stuff for this specific user. And because you
Mhm.
do that more efficiently, in aggregate, more is being bought, which means more is being sold, right? For every buyer, there's a seller. So
Yeah.
everyone's being more successful. Buyers are more successful. Sellers are more successful. There's more inventory available because things were bought. So now more people can be for sale, and you get more
Right.
diversity and you start growing. It starts that virtuous cycle. And for the ads piece, that's where it's like, well, how does the marketplace make money from all of this? So if you
Mhm.
think, forget ads for a moment, just like Outschool is an example. HipCamp is another one of our customers in terms of like real estate. They do if you have land and you want to sell it for like rent it out for like an Airbnb for camping.
Mhm.
Um, they make their money by completing transactions. Like
Mhm.
some fraction of the sale goes to the marketplace. Um, and if you've ever sold anything on eBay or like Facebook Marketplace, that's a pretty typical transaction. Like, hey, the
Right.
platform gets a fraction of the sale. Well, why is it 20%? Why is it not 15%? Or like would you be more likely to use my platform if it were 15%? Or like could I charge you 25% and actually just make more money and you'd pay it? I mean, you may not like that if you could choose to pay lower, right? But you know, could you make more money as a platform for charging more of a fraction? So this is how we think of ads is it's just the third part of this optimization. You've got your buyer and you've got your seller, but you also have the marketplace itself. And they have an interest in what they show because that's their business. So one is just the
Right.
more sales they do, but they also get a fraction. So the idea of it is you can start raising the prices on sellers, but you need to make that sustainable. You need to give out some sort of value in exchange. So
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if I just raise, it's a lot easier. Why don't I just raise my prices and then if everything is good, then great. I made more money, and I didn't have to. Usually there's a trade off, right? Like if I start raising my prices, and sellers will complain and they'll leave, and then you get like the negative version of this cycle, right? Like sellers leave and buyers don't find what they're looking for, and your marketplace shrinks. So think of ads as this extra layer of optimization, which is, all right, I'm going to charge the seller more. Effectively, I'm going to be charging you more per sale, percentage wise.
Mhm.
Like you have to pay whatever the fraction is, but you also have to pay the ad spend to be discovered. And you can even think of this like, well, I'll leave aside the cross-platform piece, but you can even think of this as like your media spending, your customer acquisition cost. Like, here's how much
Mhm.
it costs to spend to get a customer, and here's how much you make on it, right? So,
Mhm.
from the marketplace perspective, you can think of ads as, well, I'm going to just charge sellers more, and I'm going to give you in exchange more volume. I'm going to make you more
Mhm.
prominent. You're going to be top of search. You're going to reach more users. I'm going to give you more control. I'm going to give you more like lower variance. You have less seasonality or something like this. So I'm giving you something in exchange, something of valuable exchange for paying higher fees. And then
Mhm.
maybe there's also this consideration of maybe you're not the best match. Like maybe you're almost as good of a match, but you're not as good. So then it's like, well, what is it worth to the marketplace to show us maybe a slightly worse match or slightly less relevant match to get more money today? And so you solve for that equation.
No, that I mean that's awesome, and I it made me think about how like just to cover costs in certain areas, you almost have to raise your costs sometimes, on
Mm-hmm.
the back end, right? Just to make sure you're covering those fees within the ad optimization portion that you're talking about. You almost have to make sure that you're covering those costs with your by raising your prices, of what you're selling and things like that on the back end. I mean you can, but it just seems like that makes more sense now that you broke it down
Yeah.
of how it works.
This
Uh,
is how Facebook does it, right? Or Google, or really all of these major ad platforms. This is how they think of it. And they literally have like the quality score and your optimization. You have
mhm,
your objective, but then the platform has an objective as well. And the platform's objective is, yes, they want to make money, but they can't make too much money. They can't show you terrible ads and then you'll
right,
leave and stop showing up. They
right.
want good ads, and they want to also incentivize advertisers to make good ads. At the same time, users need to have a good experience in it, like solving for this trade off. In
Yeah.
fact, there's a patent Facebook filed years ago, like tried to make this explicit, like this sort of auctioning everything all together in
Mhm.
newsfeed ads and newsfeed stories together. So there's this sort of concept of putting a dollar value on interrupting people or like a negative user experience. That's
Mm.
some type of thinking that we're bringing to marketplaces so that they can optimize these sort of trade-offs. It's not just make it always better. It's at someone else's expense, but you need to quantify how much at expense so that you
Yeah.
know how much and value you need to get in exchange so that you're always profitable in the long term. So that's what we're solving for.
Man, those are things that you never think about that goes behind ads, right? Just ads in general. I sit there and all I did was put in my keywords and all that good stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, over time, right, they're going to look at stuff and it's going to collect more data and it's going to make it better and things like
Yeah.
that. But you don't think about all the other things that you just talked about, right? When it comes down to how ads work, right? Thinking
Yeah.
about putting a price to the interruption of somebody else, right? With the ads. I mean, that's something I never thought about, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned search and discovery, right?
Hmm.
And I think that that's something very important. I wanted to touch on that because those are two different things, right? And there's two different definitions from it. I definitely want to know your thoughts on the definitions, but when you look it up, they talk about search and how it promises to make this vast like swath of information available, right?
Hmm.
But then you have like discovery that's more aiming at making more relevant knowledge immediately accessible, right? Would you agree that that's something that the difference between that search and that discovery
Yeah.
aspect?
I like a pull versus push would be the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And when I think when we talk about search and discovery, I think I look at like Facebook and Google, right? They do it in my eyes very efficiently, right?
Hmm.
Probably the most efficient that I've seen in so many years and stuff. Let's talk about the importance of search and discovery. What are your thoughts on how important it is, and how it's impacting things and how data is involved with that?
Yeah. This is critical for e-commerce apps, for marketplaces. It's basically what you're selling,
Hmm.
unless you're doing also distribution or fulfillment or you own the products yourself. You're selling the ability to be discovered, so it better be good because that's your asset. Like, why do people keep coming back to you? Like let's say Outschool, for example. There's a challenge of once you find the thing you're looking for, or Google. I don't want to pick on my. Let's say Google. Like, why did I go to Google? Right. I
Mhm.
mean, when I find the thing, I found it. What do I need Google for?
Right.
Right. I mean, this sounds obvious, 20 years later, but when they first got started, it was that, yeah, the Yahoo model. It's like, no, don't leave Yahoo. Stay here. Please don't
Yeah.
leave. And Google was, because if they leave, then they're not on Yahoo anymore. And how are they going to make ad revenue on that? That sounds really dumb, right? Like
Right.
your goal is to get people off of Yahoo. That's dumb. So Google had the opposite idea, which was, well, it's not the specific thing like this specific query. It's the next time, right? If you get selected, that's really, really, really valuable.
Hmm.
So this idea of search and discovery is, what do you need? What do you need the app for? Well, I need it to find the thing I'm looking for next. Once I found it, well, maybe I don't need the app anymore. I mean, until I need the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Until you need the next thing. And that's why search and discovery is so valuable to get right, is because you build that habit. You train people that your app is useful because you find the thing you're looking for.
Right. Right. So what do you think? I mean, this is something I just thought of off the top of my head. I'm just thinking, man, it's almost like important to care about the personas of people who are searching, right? Like like when they're sitting there and they're searching, right? There has to be a top five things, right, or top three things that the average user cares about, right?
Mhm.
Uh, if you could think of when they're thinking about search, right? They're going on online to search something, or in an app or whatever it is, and what are like those top three things that somebody may care about when they're thinking about search?
Well, let's break it down to commercial search, because
Okay.
that's generally what we specialize in, versus like search is so broad. You could just say, hey, like
Yeah.
any sort of search. Um, I I think it depends on the different apps. The things that I've seen are price, um, like relevance to their query, and then certain tags like why are you showing this to me? So yes, it's relevant. Yes, it means within price range I'm looking for, but like why did you show me this versus something else? And having
Right.
different tags, like is it new, or is it like the best value, or is it on sale? Those are
Oh.
the top three things that I think people look for the most.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And to add to that, I mean, if I was in there searching, right, I care so much about, I guess, time, right? I care about like speed, right, of getting back efficient results or accurate results too. I mean, I've searched so many times, right? Even in commercial search, right? Just sitting there searching and you want to get stuff back fast so
Mhm.
that you can make a decision on whatever it is as fast as possible. And so, but you want to get back the right thing, right? What you feel comfortable with getting back when you're searching and stuff, right? To,
What does the right thing mean? Right. I think what
yeah.
you're saying a little bit is, hey, I don't want it to be broken. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't go into any app wishing that, oh, I hope it's not broken. Like
Right,
that's
right. That's true.
if it is, they better be really amazing. They better have something I really, really need. I'm not
Right.
there because I want to be, right? I'm there because I have to be. I think then, so let's say the table stakes of it works. Okay.
Yeah.
It opens, it didn't crash, and I didn't have to wait forever. Also, very important things like, yes,
Hmm.
definitely need to have those things. That's critical for user experience, but probably not what people are thinking about in terms of, oh, I hope I don't have a negative experience. It's more like,
All right.
um, what is accurate? Like, what does accurate mean, especially in a commercial sense?
Hmm.
It's much fuzzier, I think, than people give it credit for. And this is also getting into the measurement piece, and I'll talk about that more. Since as I'd like to get more into the data piece of this and like how, from like a
Yeah.
data engineering perspective, this is all done. But people want to be told the answer. Like they don't want to guess. If
Hmm.
you search for something literal, then that's pretty obvious. Like, okay, if I search for an exact string, then I want to see that exact thing for sure. But
Yeah.
it turns out in practice that exactly correct doesn't. It's much fuzzier than you actually may think. Like, well, maybe there are multiple locations. Do you mean the one that's nearest to you? Do you mean the one that's like
Hmm.
we got we bought a Tesla a couple of months ago, and their search wasn't as good as I think they've improved it since. But I remember like you'd search for a cafe and it would give you one, and like they give you the exact correct answer, and it would be in like another state, and it's like,
Oh
well,
yeah. What?
you know what I mean? Yeah, like is it an exact match? What do you
All
mean by
right.
accuracy, right? So like there's this idea of trying to infer intent of, yes, here's what you said, but here's what you probably meant.
Oh, right.
And
Right.
this sort of the sense of like what you probably meant, this is where the data part comes in. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. And this is like our superpower. So like, oh yeah, well, all this ad tech, blah, blah. But how do we do it? Like, what are you doing? What are we doing? A lot of it comes down to measurement. It comes down to just
Hmm.
measuring, here's what people saw and here's what they actually engage with. And then did they come back, measuring all of that correctly. And then you have all the infrastructures like eventing, you have the data processing. You need to join this information, you need to aggregate it, it needs to be done in real
Hmm.
time, and representing it back to the system to learn from it, so that the next time you're able to figure out, oh, when someone did something like looks like this, like X, when I search for Starbucks, I probably mean the Starbucks that's within a mile from me in the direction that I'm driving, not the
Right.
Starbucks
Sort of learning,
headquarters.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
However many miles away in this context, right? Like it also depends on the context, but in this context, I probably mean X, not Y, not the nearby Starbucks, not the far away one. In a different, like if I type Starbucks in Wikipedia, no, I don't care about the story of the Starbucks next door. I'm probably interested in Starbucks as a stock, as a company, tell me about the company history. Or if I'm
Mhm.
in my car, no, I really care much more about Starbucks near me, right? Because I'm probably trying to be
Yeah.
helpful. So you can, it's a bit of a fool's errand to try and hard code every possible context, everything that anyone could be ever thinking of. That's Google's job. I mean, they do a pretty good job of it, I'd say, don't you think?
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
but you can get pretty close by just measuring what people are doing, and then okay, when you see something that looks like that, do what worked before. And that's the technology that we provide to marketplaces is measure everything and then predict back to maximize whatever you're trying to maximize. So that's sales. So, okay, this led to a sale. So do that again and don't do the thing that you ignored or didn't work.
Right, right. And then, something where you're saying, hey, it worked. Like it click this button, it worked or something. I mean, even if it's not a button, but just acknowledging that this thing worked. Okay, great. So the next time come around, this worked, this didn't work, blah,
Mhm.
blah. Okay, great. And then that machine or whatever it is gets better and better over time, throughout the process. Now, something that, to dive a little bit deeper into that search area, right? You're searching for data that's there, right? That's been collected underneath the covers, from multiple sources and all that good stuff. Now, I want to talk about the importance of data preparation,
Yeah.
right? Preparing that data because the inaccuracies that can occur to the data during that processing, right, is important, right? You're
Yeah.
searching. How the hell do you search for like bad data, right? I mean, how do you search through like data that's not prepped at all, right? So I'm
Yeah.
sure that Google and Facebook are doing all this crazy stuff behind the scenes, still prepping things. They can get the raw stuff, but at the same time, let me clean and merge and munge and things like that. Consolidating, separating fields, transforming the data, changing the formats, all that good stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Is that something that you see? And do you see that data preparation is very important
Oh,
for
it's
search?
critical. Yeah. If you don't have good data, then what are you doing? And what you could possibly expect the machine to do if you give it garbage? It can't fix it for you. I'd love to think of this from an ad tech perspective because I think this is something a lot of people have experience with from a lot of different domains. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can think of this onto, let's say, e-commerce app or marketplaces, which are our typical customers. Um, well, how do I know that if I saw this ad that it caused someone to buy?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you know? Yeah, that's a good question, right?
Yeah.
um, that turns out to be a really valuable question to answer. And a lot of it comes down to the data prep part.
Mm.
Somehow you fire off a pixel, then you need to attribute it back to what did this, who is this person? And then did this person see anything that would have potentially influenced them to make that purchase? And then getting all of this together and joined and prepared. And then it goes into as inputs to machine learning models to try and predict things back into the future. But the first part of it is measurement. And measurement can only be as good as the data you're sending it to it. If you can't join together records, if it's not the right format, if it's your mobile device, that's my favorite topic. Like a lot of people grew up on the web and maybe they've built a website. Oh, I have a mobile app, and hey, look, there's no click on a mobile device.
Mm-hmm.
There's no mouse. There's no click. There's no mouse, right?
Right. Right.
There's no like impression. There's not like, did you see
Right.
this or not? You just get these streams of mobile events. You can tap on the screen, like there's a tap. And what did you
Yeah.
tap on? If you do any mobile engineering, so like there's a stack of different things that you could have engaged with. They all trigger these events.
Mm-hmm.
Like this gets into data preparation. It's not necessarily, I think a lot of people think of data preparation as the mobile engineers do their thing. Who knows what they do? If you're a data scientist, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, mobile engineering, it happened. And now I have a table. And now I'm going to do my work. Now my work will
Right.
get, boy, you really set yourself up for failure. You're gonna have a bad time. Like, no. It starts at the mobile device. It starts at, okay, it's not just data appears. Okay, you have your mobile device and it's instrument, like what is a click? You have to instrument what was touched. Did the user mean to touch this thing? Was there like another menu on top of the thing? Did you like take into account like, oh, maybe they clicked a menu box that was above your ad or your listing? Is that what they clicked on? Or did they click on the thing itself? And then like an impression, like, okay, you have a stream of visibility events. Do you aggregate that together into like, was this an impression or not? Like if you had like a Facebook ads manager, like, was this an impression? So, oh, and then you have to transmit that data, right? Okay, well, a mobile device, it's on a wireless connection, you have bandwidth, you have, it's unreliable. What do you,
Mhm.
how are you going to do with that? Like you need to stream it in and then you need to process it. And then maybe you need to join it with some other server events. Like maybe you can't send all of the entire event across the mobile device. Maybe you need like, you have like a piece of the information, but you need to join it with other information. So the sort of data preparation, this is actually a core thing that Promoted does. And it's frequently overlooked in the sense of like, I think a lot of people think of in our experience in industry, a lot, especially like marketplace apps, especially ones that are growing pretty quickly where people maybe come from a web background. Uh, the data preparation is so important that it's like most of the work, but it's done
Yeah.
in automated fashion. Like you have to
Uh-huh.
do it as part of the whole pipeline. It's not something that comes later by some data scientist. By that time, it's too late. You're like,
It's too late, man. By the time you get to data science.
yeah, you don't even have anything. And I think what a lot of people have been trying to do is there's a lot of popular like ML in a black box kind of stuff. Like AWS personalized. It's great. Check it out. If you want to do like ML, please do like 10 minutes of searching on Google or Amazon or Microsoft. They have a lot of tools.
Mhm.
And they will give you for free, or open source. They will give you the algorithm
Yeah.
for free, open source. Host it yourself, or they'll
Mhm.
host it for you for like a few $1,000s a month. It's yours, right?
Yeah.
It's like all the latest and greatest. It's amazing, and you think, wow, really? The greatest, latest and greatest, and that's because yes, it's nice to have the ML, great, but the data part is what's
Yeah.
missing, and they don't do that for you, right? Like you have to bring your own data.
Yeah. You have to bring it
Oh,
on.
you
It should be
do.
prepped. It should be
You
prepped
do got to
before.
bring your own data. Where'd that come from? Oh, you don't have. You've just got like some purchase table. That's all you've got. Well,
Mhm.
sure, plug it into Amazon's AWS personalized model, and they'll get you something, but it's probably
Yeah.
not that great. And Amazon's not really worried about it. They don't worry about you taking over Amazon's business by you using Amazon personalized with your purchase
Yeah.
history. Like if you're serious, if you're serious about like if you're let's say quick commerce kind of marketplace and you're serious like, oh, actually we're shooting for we have a $10 billion valuation and we're actually going for a $50 billion valuation, we're going to go public.
Mhm.
Amazon's not worried about you if you're just like, we'll just use whatever purchase history we've got, we'll just throw it into like whatever model that we'll whip something together in house, we'll go use the open source. Or they're not, you don't have the data, because Amazon has the data, they do all the instrumentation, they know all of it, but you don't. You're just like,
Right.
oh, I got a magical black box, and I hired like 3 or 4 top people, they've got PhDs, they're from Facebook, they're great, like they're gonna make all this work.
Mhm.
They're not worried about you. No,
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
the
No, absolutely,
data
man.
prep, it's all the hard work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's like 80 to 90% of the work that's done prior to the decisions that's being made, right? Like that data preparation. You made up a good point one time when you mentioned how it's so many parts to the data preparation piece. I mean, one particular part could be where say you get a table or a data set, right? That that has a bunch of data, a bunch of rows and columns, but all of it really doesn't make sense for you to make a decision from it, right? But then say you combine that with a whole nother data set, right? Then oh crap, you got some decisions that can be made based off of this, right?
Mhm.
And so now you have to join them, right? You have to clean them up, right? You got missing you got white spaces, you got all these different things in there, and that helps you make a more accurate decision in the long run. And I remember listening to a guy by the name of Andrew Ng, right? He deals a lot. I think he's out in California and stuff area, but but he does a lot with like machine learning and all that stuff. He teaches
Mhm.
some really good stuff, and he talked about, he did this study on how, he's training a bunch of people that are creating these awesome models and everything like that, and machine learning. They're just killing it, right? And when he says, okay, it needs to be more accurate, they go back and they try to fix the model, but they never try to go fix the data preparation portion, right? And
Yeah.
that's probably the most important part that they need to do. Sometimes you don't even need to fix the model on surfaces. It's clean the data up, prep it better, figure out that hard part underneath, and then put the model on top of it, and you can make everything will become more accurate, at least by like 10% or something, they
Yeah.
say. So,
No, that's where most of our value comes from, honestly. Well, yeah, we have all the fancy ML, whatever, but it's just correctly measuring things. I think even the language you're using, like cleaning the data, like
mm,
like cleaning is not. I don't get a PhD in cleaning data, right? I mean,
yeah, right.
right? Yeah, but think of it a different ways. Look, if you're running a business, that's nerd stuff. Okay, leave it alone. This is your core business. Your business is processing this data. This is what you do, processing this data.
Mhm.
That's it. So like that's your top priority. It's not like an afterthought that someone's going to go up and like later clean up. That's the core of what your core asset. It's the data.
Right, right. So it should be like a given, right? That you're doing this, right?
Yeah, that's the core. That's the
Yeah.
most important piece.
So I remember when looking up some of the stuff with promoted AI and then some of your background, you mentioned a lot on ad engineering, right? And for me, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Andrew. I don't know anything about ad engineering.
Yeah.
And honestly, when you do a search, it's like, I don't know what happened with the search criterias and all that stuff, why it's not coming up as much as you should probably have it.
Hmm.
But, knowing the differences between ads and you got engineering, right? And understanding, when I look at engineering, right, I think, you know, I think about a person that is doing some of that grunt work, if you will, right? Some of that and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't really have an engineering background, but I think I've done a lot of engineering work. I think about the um, building a system that collects like the management, converting that raw data into usable information,
Hmm.
whatever it is, for like a business analyst or data scientist, right? Probably other people as well, but they have an ultimate goal of being able to make that data accessible
Hmm.
to the person, right? And
Yeah.
then when you throw in ads, I'm like, oh man, how does this even work? So could you explain, when somebody says ad engineering, what does that really mean, and
Yeah.
how does ad engineering work behind the scenes, and like being used to design great ad marketplaces and things like that.
Let me talk about how we use it because I think
Okay.
it's different. I think a lot of people have a lot of different ideas what ads mean. What for our perspective, it's how do you make money from data
Mhm.
directly, pure money from search and discovery, and then from like a data preparation, you think, oh, analysts are helping prepare this information for someone else to consume it. There's no one. You are responsible. If you're wrong, you lose money, other people's money. They don't like that. You're in big trouble. Like it needs to work. So everything needs to be instrumented in a way that you are ultimately accountable for making everyone money, and then therefore you earn a fraction of it. And if you're wrong, there's not like some interpretation layer. You're not helping other people make decisions. You are making the decisions. You're accountable. And that's why I
Right.
think that sort of discipline comes from ads engineering. And I think it's a very healthy discipline that can be applied in other domains as well. Ads engineering, it's very real.
Yeah. So if you walk me through, I guess, how an ad engineer will play a part, um, when designing a great ad marketplace, could you walk me through that? Like, how would you envision an ad engineer playing a part in that?
Yeah, I think let's say for a just general commerce marketplace
Hmm.
for marketplace, it's One, it's correctly measuring what people are doing,
Mm-hmm.
all the data instrumentation that get it correct. Next is matching, using that information to see what people are actually doing. What did they see? What did they engage with? Did it cause somebody to make a purchase? Versus, were they already going to make a purchase, and showing them this item didn't cause them to make a new purchase? They just, these, like, from a machine learning perspective, it's like, how do you make that distinction? It comes from ads world, the whole incrementality world. We don't have time to get into that. Thinking of, like, if you're able to maximize every individual's objective altogether, that in balance, it's going to make the entire marketplace more efficient. And taking that sort of discipline of measurement needs to be correct, then you need to have the right incrementality model. Like, does showing somebody this cause them to buy it because they're satisfied with it? And then having that feedback loop in place for, okay, show them these things, they made the transaction, show them the next things to the next people. This all comes from ad tech world, doing it at a very high level of precision and accuracy and accountability. It makes the entire marketplace much more efficient and gets that positive flywheel effect moving much faster.
So that ad engineer is pretty much throughout the entire life cycle. Even when you're going back through, responses, from the work that's been done, they're
Mm-hmm.
still in there to do improvements throughout the entire time to
Yeah.
continue to optimize things. Man, they get a lot of money, man.
Well, that's why Facebook is worth trillions of dollars, right? Facebook, Amazon, these companies are worth trillions of dollars, right? Even just like Pinterest, which is where I met my co-founder Dan Hill, a great company. They're worth tens of billions of dollars, and they do nothing but just show you different images on your screen.
Hmm.
That's their entire business.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it does make you wonder, like behind the scenes, what makes them say things like, I'm optimizing this for the specific user, right? How do they get that customer experience, right? It's all about that. And so that's been important. Well, hey, look, I appreciate you being on here, Andrew. This has been an amazing experience. I like to leave the audience with what I call a dope nugget or gem, and I'll ask you, what your thoughts are. But for me, based off our conversation, I took in the word measurement, right? And how key that is
Yeah.
from many aspects, right? But that data engineer or the ad engineer perspective as well, continuing that whole life cycle that we talked about, the processing, the joining, the cleaning, the prepping, and all that stuff like that. That engineer plays probably 80% or more of a role throughout this life cycle, and they're continuously in there, right? The end result is what the data scientists may have to deal with. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that data engineer in place to do the things that they're doing, right, throughout the life cycle, then the decisions are probably going to be off. They're not going to be accurate. It's not going to be as optimized as you need it, right?
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts? What have you got from this conversation, and anything you want to leave with the audience?
I'd say the one discipline from ad tech that you can apply as a data engineer, data scientist is don't help people make decisions. Like this idea of like, you're not accountable for the final decision. Like, other
Ah,
people are accountable for it. No, you are accountable for the decision. And ultimately, if you're able to express it precisely, you can then make that into a computer program itself. And that's effectively what machine learning is. And that's the thinking in ad tech.
no,
You
I
are
like.
accountable for the decision, not you're not helping other people make that decision. So therefore, you have to be really clear about why you're collecting data and is this actually valuable. There's no
Yeah,
hiding.
yeah, yeah. No, that is an amazing final thought, because a lot of times I would say, even with myself, I sit there and you bank on those the data that you're collecting, right, as being the way that you make that final decision. So you're like, it's the data, right? But if you hold yourself accountable for that, I think it would actually put you, if you hold yourself accountable, you actually probably put more effort into some throughout the entire process to make sure that that final decision is real. So no, thank you for that, Andrew. All right, time to have a little bit of fun real quick. I know we got to run and everything, but I like to end with a game called Overrated, Underrated.
Mm.
And I got this game from Gary Vee, so I give shout out to him. But during this game, I like to ask the guests or throw out a couple topics, right, for the guests, right? A few topics for the guests, and you get to choose whether it's overrated, underrated, right where it needs to be. You get to explain a little bit further if you want to. If not, then we can go into the next one. That's fine. Are you ready, Andrew?
I'm ready.
All right. Pier 39.
I don't shop there. I don't know anything about that.
The Pier 39. They said
Overrated.
he was out there. Yeah, yeah, okay, it's overrated. Got you, got you. Yeah, I thought Pier 30. I thought it was one of the piers or something like that out there in California or something. That's out there that people go to, or if not, then maybe it is the shopping store or something like that. Let me see.
Oh, you mean the Fisherman's Wharf?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, Fisherman's Wharf. So what's your thoughts on that?
No, I live in San Francisco. That's for tourists.
Uh,
Overrated.
you know what? That probably is very true. Oh man, I didn't think about that. Most of the time, you're probably getting like tourists there that go there. You're not going to get somebody that's like a local, right? That goes there that often. You know. Okay. All right. What about the Golden Gate Bridge? Same thing.
Oh, I think it's underrated. I think it's
Really?
beautiful. Yeah, I love it.
Uh,
It's one of the most famous Zoom backgrounds, but it's very frustrating actually because you know that where if you know the area, it's like no one lives where this picture was taken. You definitely it's
yeah.
not your window. You know what I mean? No,
Yeah.
I think underrated. Plus, if you think about what it took to build such a bridge, and you read about the history, it's a very interesting story. I think it's beautiful. I think it's an icon. It's one of the most popular Zoom backgrounds.
Yeah. I think people talk about it. For me, it's like right where it needs to be. And I've been there plenty of times. I jogged across right through the little. I don't know. They have like these these things where you get together and you get to jog across or something like that, and it was pretty cool. I mean, it was amazing, and I've done it probably at least 3 times, and I think I'm worn out by it, but I love the way to even get there, right? Getting to the Fisherman's Wharf, going down up and down the bridges and all that good stuff. I mean, the roads, right? They're cool, the trolleys and everything. All right, cold weather.
Uh, I'm going to say that's where it needs to be.
Okay. Yeah, I
Depends.
don't like cold weather, man. I do not like it, man. I'm good to go with that. All right. Social media.
Ah, I'm going to say underrated. How about that? Yeah, I'm
Okay.
going to say underrated, and the reason is um, people think of it from their own experience. Like it's easy overrated. Everyone says overrated. I'm going to say underrated because I don't think people realize how big $1 trillion business is. Like
Mm,
just looking at your phone is worth how much money, and it is. Yeah, that's like
yeah.
the comparison to other businesses in your life. They're worth so much less money in comparison to let's say typical tech. It really blows your mind. Draw like a graph of the valuation of let's say Facebook compared to every like Y Combinator. Some people every Y Combinator company combined is worth like I don't know a third of just Facebook by itself. But
Oh
it's
my goodness.
yeah, it's like that's Coinbase and like all crypto, everything. Like and
Yeah.
then all Facebook does is what they show you some ads on your
Yeah.
newsfeed. Yeah, that is all they do. So I'm going to say underrated because I don't think people realize how big these businesses are.
Okay. Okay. All right. Two more. Ice cream.
Where everyone knows ice cream is delicious. So
I don't know, man. I've had some guests that say, like, I do not mess with the dairy. I don't mess with any ice cream at all. I don't
yeah,
like it. I love it personally.
I like it.
Yeah, I
You
love
know
it.
who you are if it's not for you, you know who you are.
Right, right, right. All right. Last one, traveling.
Traveling, I'm gonna say overrated. Yeah, I'm gonna say overrated because I like to live in a place where I don't have to travel too far. Like I like to
Hmm.
be in a place where I can go around the city. Hey, I live in San Francisco. Like that's on purpose. Like I think traveling is overrated because it's really why do you have to go so far to find a good restaurant or have like a beautiful sunset or good weather? Overrated.
Right, right, right. Okay, okay. Well, hey, thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. It's been a great experience. I know the audience is going to love this. And thank you, audience, for listening to the Data is My Science podcast to show them make data your passion. I'm your host, Dapper Data. Where can they reach you at, Andrew? Is there anything that you're promoting right now? Any conferences, books, or anything like that?
Promoted.ai. That's our
Okay,
website.
there
And
you go.
if you have an e-commerce app or or marketplace, we'll help you.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody, as you know, you can always tune in to any one of my podcasts on YouTube, on even I'm posting on LinkedIn now, on any one of the social media sites. You can always reach me at mrdapperdata.com. Also check out my website www.mrdapperdata.com. And until next week, thank you all. Peace. Bye.